Joining us on the program right now. Very pleased to have with us attorney Mark Bederow. And Mark, thank you, sir, for coming on the program tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
Am I pronouncing your last name correctly, by the way?
Bederow, yeah.
Bederow. All right. Well, we ran across your story earlier today in the New York Post. DA Guns for the Little Guy, the headline by Brad Hamilton,
Right.
pointing out something that we've actually discussed on this program before, that in New York City a few years ago, Mayor Bloomberg decided, well, we need new, tougher laws. That's what we need in New York. And so he went to Albany and he told the legislature, look, we need a mandatory minimum 3.5-year sentence if you're caught in illegal possession of a firearm. The legislature said, sure. And they passed this law. And then you have celebrities like Plaxico Burress or Lil Wayne or David Crosby, who get arrested for illegal possession of a weapon in New York City, and they're not doing anywhere close to 3.5 years. In fact, more than half of those individuals arrested in New York for illegal possession of a firearm are somehow avoiding this quote-unquote mandatory 3.5-year sentence, right?
Amazing statistics, but they're all true with respect to the celebrities and even non-celebrities. Half of these cases, since the new laws have gone into effect, are being dismissed or resulting in misdemeanors or something in New York called a violation, which is just tantamount to a traffic offense level. But, in our situation here, we have a guy who has a gun that was lawfully purchased in Florida, a guy who went up to the state of New York for the very best of reasons, simply to help move his girlfriend back down to Florida, who made, unbeknownst to him, an illegal turn, a right-hand turn on a red light, which you cannot do in New York, and he was pulled over, properly so. And he had a gun, again, lawfully purchased, unloaded in his vehicle, where it had been for 3 years, a gun that has never even been fired. And now he's facing 2 years, and that's an offer from the district attorney's office. That's their best offer, is 2 years in prison for this gentleman.
Wow. All right. Now, again, let's put it into comparison here. Lil Wayne got, I believe, a year behind bars. He had multiple felony convictions, right? Multiple drug arrests.
Wayne, he was sentenced to a year, which is, they did some legal maneuvering to get outside of the legal minimums, which is not being done in our case here. He got a year on a plea to a Class D violent felony. And what's disturbing in that case, the facts of the case are worse, but even worse than that are his background. This is a guy who has numerous arrests and has a documented history with guns. And it's actually referenced in the memo that we filed, that in an interview that he conducted after he was arrested, but before he pled guilty. So presumably with the full knowledge of the district attorney's office as they're handling his case. This is a guy who, in an online interview with Blender from Maxim magazine, bragged about receiving his first gun when he was 11 years old, bragged about his mother giving him his first Glock when he was 13. He's been shot. He's shot himself previously, been shot another time, and bragged about committing acts of violence. This is a guy who had a loaded .40 caliber weapon as opposed to an unloaded 9mm that has never been fired in our case. This is a guy who was arrested with marijuana, which certainly has not happened in our case, yet with the blessing of the district attorney's office in New York, received 1 year, which of course would mean that they want my client to serve double the amount of time that Lil Wayne, who just happens to be one of the most famous musicians in the world, received.
All right,
so you can draw your own conclusions.
Well, I mean, clearly what we need to do is we need to try to establish your client as some sort of gangster rapper at some point, before too long here, Mark. That way he can get celebrity justice, too.
The sad reality is that my client, you couldn't find a more decent individual than this man. He is very religious. He's actively involved in his community. He does nothing but selfless acts. He's a struggling small businessman. He does everything the right way, including purchasing the gun totally legally in Florida, following all the rules, and yet apparently he's fit for 2 years in New York State Prison, ironically, a place where he's barely ever been. He spent more time in Manhattan courtrooms and police stations than he's ever spent in Manhattan visiting.
Wow. So where is this case right now, Mark?
Well, since we're basically in a position where they want him to go to prison, it's not an ideal case that you would call a trial case because, the law in New York, it's a strict liability statute. There's no intent required. That's the change in the law from 2007. So what we have done is filed a motion under a statute in New York seeking for the court to dismiss the case in furtherance of justice, which basically means that if several factors are present, the court has the discretion to dismiss the case. And the factors that a judge can consider up here include his character and background, how serious the offense is, which, of course, as far as gun cases go, this is not serious at all.
Right.
They can consider what the purpose of sentencing an individual would be. Clearly, in these circumstances, sentencing this fine man to 2 years in prison for having a lawfully possessed gun in Florida that he accidentally brought into New York would serve no purpose. But most importantly, as far as the factors go, the judge is supposed to consider what effect a conviction here and this kind of draconian sentence would have on the public's confidence in the criminal justice system. And clearly, for this man to be sentenced to prison, as opposed to what the celebrities up here are getting, and given the fact that 50% of these cases are being dismissed, would be so unjust that it would just eviscerate the public's confidence, certainly. And the feedback I've gotten since the New York Post article certainly confirms that.
Well, I mean, I hate to say if there's one good thing that's come of an individual possibly having to go to prison for 2 years is that public awareness of this issue's been raised, because frankly, it doesn't seem like it equals out. But people are talking about this, and they should be talking about this.
They should be talking about this. This is just unjust is the only word for it. And what's mind-boggling about this is you're talking about a prosecutor's office that enjoys the greatest reputation in the country of all prosecutors' office. And in full disclosure, I used to work there. It is a fair office. It's known for fairness. They're just simply getting this one wrong, and it's a big mistake.
So when do you expect the court to issue a decision?
We should hear a decision. I would say early November is when it's scheduled. In between then, we'll get the response to these papers from the prosecution to see how they answer this. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. I don't know how anybody could reasonably state with a straight face that he should serve twice the sentence that someone like Lil Wayne got and the exact same sentence that Plaxico Burress got. And as you know, Burress is an individual who brought a loaded, unlicensed gun into a club and while holding an alcoholic beverage actually shot himself. And according to the DA's proof back then, almost shot someone else and then helped cover up the case by leaving, getting the gun returned to him. And he wasn't even arrested until approximately 3 days later because of all of that nonsense. So the idea that they can equate a New York football hero to serve the same amount of time as my client is just preposterous.
Yeah. Well, Mark, do us a favor, and when there are developments in this case, will you let us know? We'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely.
All right, Mark, thanks again, and give our best to your client, Mr. Ryan. I hope that everything turns out as well as can be expected. We'll keep in our thoughts and our prayers.
I will. He appreciates the support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mark Bederow joins us, attorney from New York, and Mark's client, Jonathan Ryan. As Brad Hamilton of the New York Post says, Exhibit A of the double standard that you see in New York City. But look, the double standard exists not just for punishing those who violate New York City's gun law. The double standard exists for those who get to exercise their Second Amendment rights as well in New York City. There is no, I hate to say it, there is no right to keep and bear arms in New York City, even post-McDonald, because of the again, the need to establish the case law. Now, hopefully, I'd love to see the arbitrary and capricious licensing laws go away. I would love to see the court in this particular case recognize, yeah, this seems kind of stupid. I mean, Lil Wayne had a lot of previous arrests to his name. Mr. Ryan doesn't. He doesn't have any arrests to his name previously. Why are we getting 50% of people who are arrested for legal possession of a firearm, they walk, they get nothing? Why do you want to give this guy 2 years in prison? I would love to hear the prosecutor just answer the simple question of why. Why this guy? Why 2 years? I know you've got the mandatory minimum 3.5-year sentence, but it's not mandatory, and it's not the minimum. This was another soundbite solution that Mayor Bloomberg pushed for. So he could sound tough on crime when he really wants to get tough on gun owners. So why this guy? Why does this guy get 2 years? And a celebrity like Lil Wayne, why does he get a year? Or why does Plaxico Burress, get so little time? Compared to this individual, again, with an unloaded firearm, legally owned in Florida. Hey, should he have brought it to New York? Nope. Shouldn't have. Should he have known the gun laws before he went up there? Yep. Absolutely should have. Should he go to prison for 2 years? When celebrities are escaping punishment. Not up to me. I think you guys know how I feel, don't you?